This is section 1-4, Identity and Equality Properties. We will learn to recognize the properties of identity and equality and use the properties of identity and equality. So let's go through all the identities and the properties. The first one we're going to talk about is additive identity. And what this is, the sum of any number and 0 is the number. So an example is 3 plus 0 equals 3. And so if we're trying to solve and find a solution, we can use this property to be able to determine the value of a variable. So if we have 2 plus n equals 2, we can determine that the value for n is going to be 0 based on additive identity. Because if we were to substitute in a 0 for n, so then we get 2 plus 0 equals 2, we know that that is a true statement. So we can say n equals 0. And that would be our solution. Okay, additive inverse. Two numbers with the sum of 0 is the additive inverse. So what does that mean? Two numbers that add up to equal 0. So that would be something like 3 plus, open parentheses, negative 3, close parentheses, equals 0. So for this one, 3 plus a negative 3, so on the number line you're at 3, and you add a negative 3, that would move you to the left 3 spot, so you get 0. So 3 plus a negative 3 equals 0. So that's the additive inverse. And there's also some special properties associated with multiplication. So we have the multiplicative identity. So multiplicative identity is any number times 1 equals the number. So if we have 3 times 1, that equals 3. So that's the multiplicative identity. So if we have an equation, something like 7 times n equals 7, we know the solution to this equation is 1. And the solution being the value that we can substitute in for n to make this statement true. Says the product, meaning multiplication, of any number and 1 is equal to the number. So if we were to substitute in 1 for the n, so we have 7 times 1 equals 7, that is a true statement. So we can say n equals 1. So the solution is 1, and we were able to determine that by the multiplicative identity. Okay, the next is the multiplicative property of 0. So in this one, any number times 0 equals 0. So if we have 5 times 0, that equals 0. So any number times 0 equals 0. And using this property, we can solve an equation. So if we have 9 times m equals 0, we know if we substitute in a 0 for our m, we're going to get an answer of 0. So we substitute in our 0, and we get 9 times 0 equals 0. We can say m equals 0, and that's a true statement. So our solution is 0. And then the last one is the multiplicative inverse, or reciprocals. So if we have a fraction and we multiply it by its reciprocal, and the product is 1. So what does this mean? This means if we have a fraction, let's say we have 1 over 3. So open fraction 1 over 3 closed fraction. A reciprocal means we flip our fraction. So if we have 1 over 3 as our fraction, the reciprocal would be 3 over 1. You take the numerator and you make it the denominator, and you take the denominator and you make it the numerator. So you switch positions. So if we are going to find this to equal 1, we multiply this. So we have a numerator times a numerator. So we have 1 times 3 is 3. We have a denominator of 3 and a 1, so 3 times 1 is 3. Our new fraction is open fraction, 3 over 3 closed fraction, and any number over itself is equal to 1. So that is the multiplicative inverse or reciprocal. Here's another example. So if we have the number, the fraction, open fraction 1 over 2 closed fraction, so 1/2, then the reciprocal would be 2 over 1, or we can even just say 2. It doesn't have to be a 2 over 1. So 1 over 2 times 2 equals 1. So that is a multiplicative inverse or the reciprocal. There is a summary of this information in table format on page 22 of the textbook, and it is also available in just paragraph format on the bottom of page 21 with a key concept.